Good morning, everyone. We are going to Pouilly-Fuisse in Burgundy momentarily. Pardon me while I pin this. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this. I visited this chateau and met Antoine Vincent a while back, and he's lovely, and the wines are great. I almost always carry them on my list. And AV Fuissé, is that you that's joining, or are you joining from the Chateau Fuissé account? I'm not sure. Let's see. Hi, Gabriella. Hi, Regal. Let's see. AV Fuissé, is that you? And I'll invite you. I thought it would be the Chateau account that you're coming on. Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay. Hi, Bridget. We're connecting through the ether right now. Hi, Carrie. Going to Pouilly-Fuisse in Burgundy.
Hello.
Again, these are some of my favorite wines. I always have them on my list. Hi, Laura. Let's see. Coming through slowly, but we did connect, so let's see.
Can you hear me?
If you guys have been watching this since last
Hello.
year. Hello, Antoine,
How are
how are
you?
you? Oh, you have
Good
a
to see
beautiful
you.
sky and a good location.
It's the very first day. It's sunny, so you're very
Well,
lucky.
we're very lucky. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Skies of Burgundy.
Yeah.
Let's go right to it, Antoine. I like to have people tell us who you are, what you do, and then how you got there. Some people were born into the business and some people weren't. And
Okay.
that's always an interesting story.
Okay. So hello everyone. So it's a pleasure to welcome you at Chateau Fuissé. So where is Chateau Fuissé first? So Chateau Fuissé is located in France, in the south of Burgundy. That's to say in the middle of France, about 50 miles south from Beaune. So we are right in the south of Burgundy. And we are specially located in the village of Fuissé. So Fuissé, of course, mainly producing the Pouilly-Fuisse appellation, which is, I know, one of the famous appellation in the US. So Chateau Fuissé is one of the largest estates and one of the historical estates of Pouilly-Fuisse appellation. So the chateau you see in the background is back to the 15th century. And all around we have vineyards. I wasn't in the vineyard, to be honest, today, because since it's the very first day, it's sunny, everyone is in the vineyard. So it's very noisy. You have a mess of tractors, people in the fields. So it's a mess. So I decided not to be in the vineyard, but to be more in a peaceful atmosphere right in front of the chateau, which is not so bad in the end. But,
Yeah, that's when we spoke. I knew you were going to make a good choice regardless, so I'm very excited to see what you did. So, Antoine, tell me how your last name connects with the chateau and how you grew up in the wine business.
Yeah, so it's a family business, as you know. So I'm representing the fifth generation of winemaker here. So I took over from my father in 2003. So that's already almost 20 years ago. So time flies very fast. And I'm getting old. I'm sorry. So I was in the wine business. I think it's a part of my DNA because I grew up here. I wasn't born in the chateau, but I was born very close to here. But all my childhood was spent in this surrounding, in these beautiful vineyards and estates. And of course, I did my internship in the wine business, in the wine industry, and then I specialized in as an engineer in viticulture. I'm an enologist as well, so of course I'm very interested in the wine business, mostly on the technical side. Of course, I had a chance to work in Alsace or in other part of France before joining the chateau in 2003. Just to have another experience. And then I felt it was my time to go back to the chateau and to work a little bit with my father because, as you know, wine business, and especially in Burgundy or in small region like France, it's very important to have that kind of relationship in between generation. And because you can go to school, you can learn everything when you do very clever stuff you learn, but there are some secrets or some things you learn once you are in the field, once you are in the ground. And by working with other generation, you have the chance of getting the experience for the previous one. Because as you know, in the wine business, we only play the games once a year. So each year, and especially in Burgundy, each vintage is different. So if you have the chance of having the experience from the previous generation, of course, it's a big help in terms of adaptation and knowing how to react. If it's a sunny, if it's, oh, sorry? Yes?
You're good, you're good.
If it's a sunny and warm vintage as compared to a cold vintage. So that was very helpful for me to work with my parents and to my father.
That's a really good explanation of that. So then you come over here fairly often. We met at a dinner over here, but you come for the portfolios. And then your brother-in-law sometimes comes. How do you split that up?
So I think that's one of the key of the success of Chateau Fuissé also is that everyone has each part of the business. So my brother-in-law, Philip Twinder, is mainly dealing with the commercial side. I'm mainly dealing with the, I would say, the technical side regarding the vineyard and the wines, and also having the global view on the chateau. That's managing all the chateau. But Philip is mainly dealing with the commercial side in France and in the US. So that's why, okay. And I work also with my sister Benedict, and Benedict. So she has clients today because we received some people here. We have a chance of being able to receive people for testing. So she's dealing from more direct relationships with French people who come and so on, and the more commercial or marketing side. So we have each of the three have our own part of the business, and it's better because everyone is not telling. So you should have done that, you should have done that, etc. So that's how we did, and that's the best way to be in good term with the others.
Yeah, totally. And you cover more bases too. Yeah, so exactly. I would like to just back up a little bit, not well, I backed up physically, but and could you explain Pouilly-Fuisse to people? Because like you said, people know Pouilly-Fuisse, but it's sometimes confusing all the villages and how all that works.
Yeah. So yes, for sure. Pouilly-Fuisse, it's one particularity of Pouilly-Fuisse, it's that it's divided in different villages, which is different from Meursault, for instance, or Puligny-Montrachet, where you only have one single village giving the name of one appellation, to make it simple. Here at Chateau Fuissé, it covers a larger, I would say, area, divided in different small villages. So if you go from south to north, you have the village of Chantrey, then you have the village of Fuissé, the hamlet of Pouilly and Solutré, and then the village of Vergisson in the north. And these different villages covers about, I would say, 2,000 acres in total. So that's to say it's quite a big appellation in the end. So that's why also it's famous, because we have a larger area and production as compared to smaller appellation from Burgundy. And one characteristic also of this appellation is that it has a large variety of different soils and giving different styles to the wines. That's why it's very important to know where you purchase the grapes, where you grow your vines, and where how to deal with your vinification process. And that's what we do at Chateau Fuissé. We always try to adapt our vinification process according to the type of soil and to the type of terroir that we have. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine that one characteristic also of the Pouilly-Fuisse, it's different from the villages from North Burgundy, but in the other hand, it's the same. That's to say, it's a very tiny plots that we have. So you can imagine that if you have tiny plots with different types of soils, you can have a large variety of different types of wine in the end. And this is the case at Chateau Fuissé, since we have about 50 to 60 acres in total. divided in small different plots. You can imagine that we have different types of Pouilly-Fuisse and that we have to drive with the vinification process in the way we decide to express the best of the terroir.
Yeah. Now, there's been some developments with, you guys have some new Premier Cru appellations, right? Could you explain that and how, people don't understand how much work that was and how long it took?
So that's an easy but long story, I would say, because so first of all, historically speaking, we didn't get any Premier Cru in the south part of Burgundy as compared to the north part of Burgundy. So you have Premier Cru, Les Pucelles, and Puligny, and so on. We don't have any Premier Cru since 2020 in the Pouilly-Fuisse appellation. Sorry, because historically, due to World War II. So in 1942, when the Germans invaded France, France was divided in between a free zone where we were in the south of France and the occupied zone from the German in the north part of France. Mm-hmm. And the Germans needed wines for the troops, but they gave the chance to the producers to protect some part of their vineyards. So what happened, the viticulturists in 1942, they protected the best part of their vineyards. So that's where and when the Premier Cru from Côte d'Or were created. Okay. And this was not the case and useful in the south of France, where we are, or in the south of Burgundy, where we are, right, because we were under free zone. So there was no need to protect our best areas. So after World War II, of course, the business went differently. The business with the wine and with the Pouilly-Fuisse appellation was doing okay, especially with the US markets. So there was no need to protect and to add more distinction to the wines. But and that's 60 or 70 years after that, we decided it would be a good opportunity to go back to history and to show that we also have a philosophy of plot and Premier Cru style, what we call climat in this region. And this is what we have always been doing at Chateau Fuissé since the 19th century. We have old labels saying Chateau Fuissé Le Clos, right, written on the label. Right. But it was not written Premier Cru Le Clos. So right. So we decided it was a shame or not, or it was unfair not to have this classification, which is not a creation of an appellation. It's a recognition of the good plot and the work that we have been doing on these soils to express one's identity of soil. And we started with all the producers of this appellation, which represent about 300 producers. We decided to go under this strategy of getting Premier Cru in 2009. So that's a long story. And 10 years after, we had a chance of having protected or having designated our Premier Cru, which in the end, for us, it was very simple because everyone in the appellation knows where their best plots are. Right. But it was more difficult to convince the INEO or the administration because we had to make survey on the soil, on the subsoil, on the climate, on the weather, on etc., on the history, saying, so this soil, especially this one, needs to have a Premier Cru classification because the soil is clay and limestone. We have a huge experience on this soil, etc. So this is all these little elements that in the end enable us to get the Premier Cru appellation. And 2020 vintage is going to be the very, very first Premier Cru appellation for Pouilly-Fuisse vintage. So it's quite a historical vintage, 2020 vintage, because it's a new history that we are written. And for my family, especially, it's something special as well, because my great-grandfather was one of the founder of the Pouilly-Fuisse appellation in the 1920s, 1929. Yeah. So when you look backwards, we are still there. One of my grandfather, created this appellation. So it's a good link.
It's very
family
cool.
link. So it's a part of the history of the family as well. So it's a good sign. It's a good sign.
And then the Le Clos refers to around the chateau. That's your Premier Cru?
Yeah. So we have a, if I can show you,
Oh, cool.
maybe. So
Oh,
you, if you see the background, so I'm in the yard right now, but
yep.
the vines, maybe the vines you see over there, I don't, are is Le Clos. So Le Clos
Okay.
means a property surrounded by stony walls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Voilà. Stony walls because you have the chateau and right around you have the Le Clos. So this plot is very important for us because it's right in the heart of the history of the chateau, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's special for the Premier Cru status because it's a monopole and it's the only monopole of the appellations. That's to say, we are the only producers of this plot and the only owner of these plots. So you can't find, oh, sorry. So the only Premier Cru Pouilly-Fuisse Le Clos you will find will be from Chateau Fuissé. That's what it is.
Gotcha.
So we have another one, which is Les Brûlés. And Les Brûlés is facing south Le Clos. It's only 30 meters far from Le Clos, but facing south. And this name, Brûlé, means burnt, burned by the sun, because it sees the sun all day long. And each plot is different because Le Clos is east exposure, and you have different soils on it. You have clay and limestone at the top, and you have more clay at the bottom, giving more structure to the wine. And Les Brûlés is more on marl, giving more structure, more masculine flavors, more sunny style flavor as well. And so that's why this is exactly what represents the Premier Cru, is from one soil to the other, being able to have a different expression of only one grape, which is Chardonnay. So that's the magic of our part of Burgundy as well.
Antoine, would you mind tilting the camera a little bit? We're missing the top of your face and the tower. There you go. Perfect.
I can do that.
Perfect.
If you don't mind. I don't see myself because it's too sunny today.
Oh, that's a little too high. I just see your forehead. There, that's good. That's good.
That's good.
And if you back up just a bit, I think.
Okay.
So there's no red wine in Pouilly-Fuisse, is that correct?
It's only Chardonnay grape, so which means white wine. Yes, that's correct.
And can you explain what you usually, just in the wine world, we think when we hear Chateau, we think Bordeaux. So we don't see very many Chateau in Burgundy. Can you explain that a little bit?
It's because the Chateau you see in the background here, this one, it's a very old one, back to the 15th century. And most of the Chateau, or so-called Chateau in Bordeaux, is synonymous to domain. It's only in Bordeaux, they call Chateau a domain. But here, in the part of Burgundy, it means that it was like this old estate who belonged to knights in the back. So that's why it's a true chateau, because it's old first, so back to the 15th century as compared to the 19th century for Bordeaux, for instance. And it has a true history in it. It has a true history in this. So that's why it's called chateau. But you're right, it doesn't designate exactly the same. For us, it's more a historical way, and in Bordeaux, it's more meaning a domain. That's
and I'm sure people kind of figure this out, but many villages have just a chateau with the village, and that's what this is too.
Yeah, and
beautiful.
So that's why we have a chance of being able to put the name of the appellation close to the name of the chateau, because usually you don't have the right. So you have Chateau Margaux, for instance, Chateau Fuissé, but most of the chateaux do not have the right to put the name of the appellation as close to the name of the estate, because it's protected by the ANA. But since we have a huge background on winemaking and on vine growing, and since it's the historical chateau of the village, we have the right to call it Chateau Fuissé.
I see. It's always fascinating to me, and it's all that history that is just it's never ending to learn about all the history.
Yeah.
So can you tell me how Chateau Fuissé in your winemaking and your property, and just, it's one of my favorite properties, but how are you different from your neighbors in Pouilly-Fuisse?
So as I said, we are quite a large estate at Chateau Fuissé, so since we cover about nearly 60 acres in total, so you can imagine that the average is around between 6 to 10 acres. 10 acres is a big estate in Pouilly-Fuisse appellation, so we have a chance of having 60 acres. And 60 acres divided on these different soils means a lot in terms of possibility to grow the grapes and to vinify the wines. And this is exactly what makes Chateau Fuissé for me so unique, is that we have the chance of having this patchwork of soils, giving each a single expression of Chardonnay. And my philosophy of winemaking, as I said before, is not doing always the same vinification to each plot, but it's adapting really the vinification I do according to the type of soil. For instance, in some areas of the appellation, we have more slate soils, and we have some sandy soils, and they are in the Pouilly-Fuisse appellation, so we have some here. But these wines, for me, they don't have enough structure to fit with the oak treatment. But they are, for me, very interesting if I vinify them in tanks and then blend them to other plots, which are vinified in oak, because they had some lightness and some floral characteristics to the wine. So that's always, my job is always to try to combine and to express the best expression, because I prefer to do elegant wines. My style is more producing elegant wines than fat and powerful wines, because Chateau Fuissé is mainly located in the village of Fuissé, where we are, of course, historically. And in this village in particular, we have the chance of having more clay. And the clay in this part of Burgundy is giving a lot of structure and bodiness to the wine. So it's easy for me to do a fat wine, bodyful wine. But once again, I prefer to counterbalance and to make elegant wine, which is much more challenging than making easy wines, oaky wines, and so on. So that's I think that's one of the particularity that we are doing at Chateau Fuissé, and that's what I learned from my father, of course, we mentioned before.
So would you mind telling us, just kind of go down the line of the wines you make? Because on my list, I believe it's the Tête de Cuvée that I always get.
Yeah.
And then the Marie Antoinette is very good. I just remember tasting with some Wildman people years back, and you make quite a few wines, but could you tell us about them? So
the difference so we have two kinds of brands. So the first one we have is Chateau Fuissé, located here, and the other brand we have is from purchased grapes. So we purchase grapes to some family properties and also to some neighbors that I know, but we don't own the soil. So I purchase the grapes and must and juices, and then I vinify the wines. I bottle the wine, and we sell them under another name, which is Pouilly-Fuisse Marie Antoinette. And the reason between Chateau Fuissé and Marie Antoinette is because on one side we purchase grapes, on the other side we grow the grapes. And also it's because the styles are different as well. From Pouilly-Fuisse Marie Antoinette, it's more easy drinking, crisp, straight on Pouilly-Fuisse, a more wine you enjoy as an aperitif and so on, easy drinking. So that's for me the introduction to the Pouilly-Fuisse side of the Chateau. That's the introduction to my philosophy of winemaking. So I don't use too much oak because the grapes are sourced from a region which is more on mineral characteristics. Okay. And so I prefer not to vinify them in too much oak. So there is a tractor outside, so I have to go back.
It's okay. Well, you hear the sirens in my background. I live near a hospital, and it's not like a great recording studio.
So I go in more quiet way.
Okay. So take your time. No rush.
Voila.
Awesome.
Okay. So so that was the difference between Chateau Fuissé and Marie Antoinette style. The other thing is and Pouilly-Fuisse Tête de Cuvée, Chateau Fuissé Tête de Cuvée, it's a blend. It represents all these different soils that we have at Chateau Fuissé. So I talk about the slate and sandy soils. So we have also more limestone and clayey soil, and these different plots So it represents about 40 different plots, which are vinified separately in different ways. And then they are blended together. And on the Chateau Fuissé Tête de Cuvée, this is a merge of these different plots, representing, in a way, the property of Chateau Fuissé, because it represents all the soils that we have at Chateau Fuissé that needs to merge together. And this is quite unique because each estate in the village and each estate in the appellation, of course, has different locations. So this is the expression of the Pouilly-Fuisse from the Chateau Fuissé. So that's on the Tête de Cuvée. And aside from these two wines, we have three other different Pouilly-Fuisse. So we have one Le Clos, single vineyard, which is going to be Premier Cru from 2020 vintage on. So I talk about it, which is east exposed, clay and limestone soil, middle coast exposure. South-facing Le Clos is Les Combettes, more south-facing Le Clos is Les Brûlés, sorry, on very deep marl soil. And at the opposite, we have Les Combettes on a very limestone soil. So Les Combettes and Les Brûlés, Les Combettes is close to another location, which is called Les Perrières. So these two names, for people who are familiar with Burgundy, are very famous names in the vineyard because they have a link with the stony soils that we have in Burgundy. And Combette means little valley. So if you have the chance of coming, which I just have to encourage you, is to come and visit us. So you will see the Combette means a little valley. So it's a very small valley. It's only 2 hectares, so about 4 acres in total. So it's a very small location, but it's a little hilly, northeast exposure on limestone soil. So if you take our 3 different single vineyards, you understand our feeling about the winemaking on the difference of vineyards as well. But for these 3 different vineyards, we vinify differently each of these. For instance, on Les Combettes, I don't use any new oak to preserve the elegance and the minerality. And on the other side, on Les Brûlés, since it's a very deep soil, I can afford to use more new oak for this cuvée. So always playing the game in between potential of soil and vinification process.
So can I ask you a little strange marketing question that you can certainly just not answer me if you don't want to, but with the tariffs, the Pouilly-Fuisse that I have, the price went up and down, and now it's back in a nice spot on my list where it sells a little bit easier than with the tariff pricing. But now you're going to have this Premier Cru that I assume is going to be a little more expensive. Are people prepared to pay a little bit more money for Premier Cru from Pouilly-Fuisse, or is that going to be a little bit of you have to educate the public?
So as I said, the Pouilly-Fuisse Premier Cru status, it's only a recognition of something. So that's to say some of the names were already on the market. Mm-hmm. So for instance, for Chateau Fuissé Le Clos, it won't make any big difference in between the price you had before and the price you're gonna have with the Premier Cru, because of course it's the same exclusivity, it's the same wine, the same plot, it's the same thing, and we already created this kind of difference in price, which is fair in a way because it's a more smaller appellation and rarer location, of course, so a more exclusive wine, of course. So it needs to have a difference in between wine, and this was also a reason to get Premier Cru appellation, is to be able to prove that a Premier Cru was selling more expensively as compared to a regular Pouilly-Fuisse. Yeah. So for us and for historical estates, I'm not sure it's going to make any big deal and big change because we were already there before. So the difference was already there. So for the others, maybe some will benefit from the history, but it's only a tiny part of the production on the Premier Cru. So I'm not sure it's going to disturb the global supply on the Pouilly-Fuisse appellation in the end. Yeah, for sure.
Now, can I ask you about your Beaujolais properties? Because I love that wine, and I like to tell people they're such a good value, but they're so delicious. Do you mind talking about those?
So since we are located in south of Burgundy, we are very on the edge in between the historical Bourgogne, where we are, and on the other side of the hill, we have the Beaujolais starting. And the reason why it's starting from one side from the hill to the other, it's because it's a different soil. So it means something. It's not, it's Beaujolais here, and we're going to propose Beaujolais here and Pouilly-Fuisse or Mâconnais wines there. It has a true reason, which is a technical reason. It's here we are clay and limestone. On the other side of the hill, because of the mountains and so on fails and the geological things, we have difference in terms of soils. So the soil there are more granitic, sandy soils, and here it's clay and limestone. So that's why they grow mainly Gamay grapes on this side, and that's why we mainly grow Chardonnay here. So in 2009, we had a chance of getting an estate in the Beaujolais, which is in the Julienas appellation. So it's a beautiful estate that we have, which is about 6 acres in total. So you have the estate, and all around, like here at Le Clos, we have the estate planted with very old vines, with a nice concentration of vines. And we do these wines either on a very traditional way of vinification that we do only. So of course we handpicked everything at Chateau Fuissé from the whites to the reds, and we only do pumping overs. We only do a maceration, which is about 12 days, and then we also have the chance, because this is my style, and I feel we have the potential of being able to age the wines in barrels. So we age the wines of Julienas in oak, as we do for the Pouilly-Fuisse, because the soil and the age of the vines enable us to extract the best of the plot with the oak treatment. So that we do about 12 months of élevage, so oak treatment on the Julienas. So
it's delicious. And to be clear, the bottle says J.J. Vincent. They're not going to. They won't see Chateau Fuissé on the label.
We see the Chateau. We see the Chateau on the label. Yeah. We also have some Morgon, but we don't sell it to the U.S. because historically my grandfather used to have properties in the Beaujolais in Morgon and in Julienas as well, which was not our Julienas right now. It used to be Julienas and Morgon from other estates. And sometimes if we have the demand on some wines, we purchase some wines from historical estates from the family. And since we purchase the wines from the family, it's not Chateau Fuissé, it's J.J. Vincent.
Gotcha. Well, I will let you go. We have talked for a good half hour, and I think we covered everything. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to talk about?
I just want to say you're welcome at Chateau Fuissé whenever you want.
It was I had the best time when we visited with John Seller and everybody, and I'm dying to come back. It was one of the more memorable meals that we had at the Chateau in that big room upstairs. It was great, and the food, and I love your wine. Every day when I'm at work, I'm selling your bottles. So
I wish I had the chance to come and visit you as well this year, next year, to be more honest. But if you have a chance, if you are most chance to come, you're very welcome to come and visit.
Kind. I hope to get back, and I think we're going to see you over here sooner rather than later. So cross your fingers, and I'll see you when you get over here. Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Enjoy and drink Pouilly-Fuisse and Chateau Fuissé wines.
There you go.
Enjoy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.